Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are all three fairly positive things on their own. However, they no longer exist in this new year. Now, what on earth are we talking about when I say diversity, equity, and inclusion don't exist anymore? Well, in each new year, there are new laws that go into effect. And if you get the opportunity to, I highly recommend you do a quick Google search of the new laws that went into effect in your state. You might be very surprised at what was passed and how they affect you, your friends, and your family. And of course, it's going to provide great opportunities for having discussions or more discourse around why these laws are created, who creates them, and how they affect us. So, going back to diversity, equity, and inclusion, I reference that because in the state of Texas, there was a law that went into effect January 1st. And that bill or that law was titled Senate Bill number 17. Senate Bill number 17 states that across the state of Texas, all publicly funded universities and colleges have to stop doing their diversity, equity, and inclusion training initiatives, and they have to close their diversity, equity, and inclusion offices. And a lot of times this is referred to as DEI for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, there are 100 or so publicly funded universities in the state of Texas. That's a lot of universities. And I believe there's about 50 or so private universities that, of course, this does not affect, like SMU. However, University of Texas at Austin, UTA, this does affect. So by January 1st, they had to not only close their diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, they had to stop doing their DEI trainings for their staff members, and they had to stop any DEI initiatives that they had on campus or any groups associated with that. And not only did they have to do those things, but they had to give proof or show proof to the state of Texas that they did that by the 1st of January. Now, why did this go into effect, or why was this law passed? Well, there was a senator by the name of Brandon Creighton. He is the one who came up with this bill that eventually was passed by the governor, Greg Abbott. I'm going to read a few quotes from Mr. Creighton about why he feels that this bill is important. He states specifically that this is the most significant ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education in the nation. Now, just for reference, Florida is the only other state that has a law similar to this one. But let's stop right there and let's think about this. That this is the most significant ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the higher education in the nation. Now, reading that alone by itself with no reference or no knowledge of anything, to me, that doesn't sound very positive. Banning diversity, banning equity, and banning inclusion in education in the college setting, that doesn't sound like a good idea to me. But let's continue on with this quote and see what else he says. He says, with this bold, forward thinking legislation to eliminate DEI programs, Texas is leading the nation in ensuring our campuses return to focusing on the strength of diversity and promoting a merit based approach where individuals are judged on their qualifications, skills, and contributions. Now, that right there, I can agree upon that one should be judged on their qualifications, their skills, and their contributions. I'm down for that. That's a meritocracy system, and I think that's a positive thing. But I also agree diversity, equity, and inclusion are positive things as well. Senator Creighton continues to say that what sets Senate Bill 17 apart from other proposals is that the legislation delivers strong enforcement with mandates to return Texas universities and colleges to their core mission of educating and innovating. Now, that right there sounds great. I can totally get behind returning our universities, returning our entire education system back to educating and innovating, and kind of cutting out some of that fluff that we all know exists in our education system today. So there's a mixed bag with his quotes here. First thing he says is that this is a great ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't think that's a great thing to say, but then he continues to say that we are basing our new qualifications for admission into our universities based on the student's merit. That's great. And he also continues to say that we are returning back to a university of education and innovation here in the state of Texas. And I agree with that as well. The question is, how important is diversity, equity, and inclusion at the college level? And how can a bill or a law like this impact such things? And is this going to be a positive change for those universities or negative change for those universities? So I did a little bit of research to try and figure out how many of these publicly funded universities across the state of Texas have these DEI offices or trainings and initiatives. But guess what? That is almost impossible to figure out, as there is no clear record which campuses do and which campuses do not have these offices. So, is this a major important issue? I think anytime we start talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that it is an important issue. And I think when we have people out there saying that that those things should be banned, I think that's a major issue as well. The question is Senator Creighton right in saying that education should not focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion? It should instead focus on educating and innovating, as he says. That is the question I feel that we need to have more discourse about and understand really how this affects our campuses, how this affects our students, and how this affects our upcoming generations. I would love to hear what you think about this, whether this is a positive change or a negative change, and how this might affect other states, other lawmakers, so on and so forth. With that being said, I hope we can have more discourse on this topic and others throughout the year. Thank you.